Welcome back to another Fantasy EFL video, and it's going to be a little bit different today because I'm having to plan and record this video before the final 3 games of the game week. So they're being played on Tuesday night, so I don't actually know what my final points are from game week 7 and what my final rank is. So far it's not been great, and I'm only on 42 points, getting ruined by Huddersfield really. We were really bad too, losing 3-1, so 0 points for the fixture selection. Hellick scored an own goal, and Wiles did nothing. Really hoping they can turn it around for tonight against Blackpool, but by the time this is uploaded you'll already know that result. The one thing that did go well for me was having Poku, who scored 11 points so far, and Maida up front with his goal against Plymouth. So he finished on 7 points, and then obviously Peterborough won too, so 7 points for that as well. So yeah, 42 points so far, and down to a rank of just over 3k actually, but I should finish a lot higher than that. I think the majority of people that have gone above me have picked single game week players, so I've technically still got 8 more players or team chances of getting more points. Who knows, but if you're still interested to see my final points and rank, then make sure to follow me on Twitter at the FPL Terrier. So with this week being another double game week, but for all the teams rather than just 6 teams, we're obviously needing to look at the fixtures as a pair, and I've picked out a few teams I like the look of. I can't go through all the betting data as it's not out for some of the games yet, but I'll give you my reasoning behind each choice. Because all the data isn't out yet, I'm going to include my player choices that I like from the teams as I go through this week. The thing with the Championship is that not a single team has 2 home fixtures. So there's actually only 3 teams from the Championship that I like the fixtures for. The first is Burnley, who play Oxford away and Plymouth at home. Burnley won their most recent game 2-1 at home to Portsmouth with a 94th minute winner from Brownhill. That took them up to 3rd in the table, just behind Sunderland and West Brom. We've talked about Oxford's decent start to the season in previous videos, but I think there's really a gulfing class between a lot of the sides in the league and Burnley. Oxford are much better at home though. They've actually won all 3 of their home games so far this season, so this is definitely the weaker of the 2 fixtures for Burnley, but I still think they should have enough quality to beat Oxford. Plymouth lost away again at West Brom in game week 7, and before that they did beat Sunderland 3-2. I've always said that they're better at home though, and so I'd argue they've got a chance at home to Luton on Friday night, but away at Burnley is a different question. Especially on a Tuesday night, that's a long way to travel midweek. Plymouth now sit 20th with just 5 points, and this is definitely a fixture to target for me. In terms of the players, the main one I'd be looking at is Josh Brownhill. Fairly obvious with his 3 goals and 1 assist in 6 games. He's one of Burnley's main threats, if not the best, and he's nailed on for 90 minutes. If I'm honest, his XG stats aren't particularly great. 0.17 XG per 90 is what he's performing at right now. But as a whole, Burnley's XG isn't very good. They've actually got the 4th lowest XG in the whole league with just 5 XG created. Yet they've scored 13 goals, with only Plymouth, Preston and Cardiff lower. It kind of proves that not everything is about XG and that finishing the chances you do get is more important. But I guess it takes a little bit of the appeal away. On the other side of that though, is that Plymouth are the highest team for XG conceded, with a really high 13.3. Only Portsmouth are anywhere near that with 12.4. So yeah, Brownhill definitely a player I'm looking at targeting, and potentially maybe a Lyle Foster. Defensively, to target the clean sheet potential, I'd probably say the best options are Lucas Perez or James Trafford. The next Championship team I like are Sheffield United, who play Portsmouth away and Swansea at home. I've literally just mentioned about Portsmouth's XG conceded, 12.4 so far, and they're currently winless in the league with just 3 points from 6 games, and they only have Cardiff below them in the table. Their 2 most recent home games finished 3-1 to Sunderland and 3-0 to West Brom, so they're definitely conceding a lot of goals at home, meaning the away fixture doesn't really bother me for Sheffield United. Sheffield United are sat in 5th in the league so far, but let's not forget they also got a 2-point deduction that without would mean that they would sit 3rd in the Championship table. Swansea have had a good start to the season with 10 points on the board, leaving them in 7th so far. Defensively, they seem to have been solid, only conceding 4 goals. But if you do look at the XG conceded data, they're the 4th worst team in the league, with 9.5. So if Sheffield United can be clinical, then this could turn out to be a very good fixture to target. I would definitely argue that Swansea are also better at home. Yes, they did just win away at Coventry, but in general, they're worse away from home. And Bramall Lane isn't an easy place to go. In terms of players to target from Sheffield United, my obvious favourite would be Gustavo Hamer, who I spoke about last week too. And he ended up doing very well again. He's got 4 goals and 1 assist so far this season, and I just keep saying it, he's too good for this league. Other standouts are probably Callum O'Hare, but I just think Hamer's better. And defensively, they've been good, they've only conceded 3 goals so far. So any of their back line that you like, to be honest, there isn't really a strong standout for me. The final team I do like from the Championship is actually Luton. Although I will add that this is the weakest out of the 3 for me. I just think they've got the same fixtures as Burnley, just the other way round. So Plymouth away, which I'm not a massive fan of, but I could see goals in that game. And then Oxford at home, which I think having the home advantage should give them the boost needed to win that. I have already spoken about both Oxford and Plymouth, so I'll just concentrate on Luton here. They started the season off very badly, the worst possible way after getting relegated from the Prem. They had 1 point after 4 games. Well, although they're still not scoring loads of goals, we have seen a slight change in mentality and results with a 1-0 away win at Millwall and a 2-1 home win against Sheffield Wednesday with 2 goals off the bench from Carlton Morris. That's more like what we saw from Luton in the seasons before they went up. And they're starting to build and grow in confidence, and they're already climbing up the table. They're now sat in 15th. I think these 2 games could continue that run and are good fixtures to target. Specific players, you now have to say Carlton Morris. Surely he starts after getting a brace against Sheffield Wednesday. But we'll have to wait and see on the lineups for that one. I also like Doherty and Chong in midfield. Defensively, I don't like them as much. I think the clean sheet potential is lower than the likes of Burnley and Sheffield United, and even Leeds I'd add in there too. But if I was to go for one, I'd probably go for Kaminsky in net. In League One, I've got to mention Birmingham. They actually don't have the easiest set of double fixtures with Peterborough and Huddersfield. However, both of the games are at home. Birmingham look a different class this season and should easily break 100 points. Peterborough for me looks the easier of the 2 fixtures. Huddersfield walked over them on the opening day, and I can see Birmingham doing the same. The Huddersfield fixture definitely is a bit harder, and I do think Huddersfield overall will be one of the only teams to have a chance at competing with Birmingham. But we've seen already that on a bad day, Huddersfield can ship a lot of goals. And last season in the Championship, Huddersfield lost 4-1 away at Birmingham. So it's not necessarily a bad fixture to target. You guys already know that I am a Huddersfield fan, so I'm trying to take the bias out. Even though I'm thinking about putting Birmingham players in, just so one way or another my weekend or week won't be ruined. But Birmingham are now joint top of the league with Wrexham, but have a game in hand. They haven't lost a game yet, and are the only team in the league yet to do so. And let's just be real, they should win every single game this season, so it would be stupid not to mention them in a double game week. Players I like, or the one I like the most, is Jay Stansfield. He's the record-breaking transfer for Birmingham, and he's already got 3 goals in 2 games. Most people will say Alfie May, and it's still a good option, but he was actually benched against Rotherham. I think that was more of a tactical thing rather than he's lost favour with the manager, but just watching the games, when Stansfield is on the pitch, Alfie May does sometimes have to drop back a bit or push out wide sometimes. And I'm not denying that Alfie May is a good goal scorer or a good bagsman, whatever you want to call him. But if we're talking about actual footballing ability and skill, Stansfield's on another level. And when Alfie May isn't straight down the middle target man, with goals being kind of put on a plate for him, he doesn't have anywhere near the same impact. So I do think Alfie May is still a good option. He does still score goals when he starts, but Stansfield is way higher in preference for me. Pike and Iwata look like they could also cause some damage in League One this season, with 1 assist and 2 goals respectively. I know Williamson is the one with a goal and 2 assists, but purely from the eye test and watching the games, he doesn't look anywhere near as dangerous as the other 2. I actually don't really like Williamson as a player, that's just my opinion though. Defensively, I like Cochran and Gardner-Hickman. They get quite high up down the flanks and put some good crosses in. Their keeper is a bit dodgy, and there's no point going for Davies because I expect Bielich to come straight back into the back line after his red card against Wrexham. So Birmingham are a strong fancy for me this week. I'm only going to talk about 2 more teams in full depth, but don't worry, I will still put an extra list of the teams and players I like up afterwards, so you can see them all. There are a couple more League 1 teams on there, but the next 2 that I really like for Game Week 8 are actually both in League 2, and the first is Port Vale. They've had what I would describe as a strange start to the season, with some really good performances, and some the complete opposite. They've obviously still got Darren Moore as manager, and as a Huddersfield fan, I know plenty about him in a bad way, but he just didn't get on at Huddersfield. He was too defensive, but with this Port Vale team in League 2, they should be up there come the end of the season, and I think this double game week is a good opportunity to target them. They have 2 home fixtures, the first against Swindon and the second against Colchester. Port Vale are sat in 9th so far with 3 wins and 11 points from 7 games, whereas Swindon is sat in 21st with just 1 win and 6 points so far, and Colchester are 11th with 9 points. Colchester haven't lost in 4 league games, but they did concede 3 goals to Morecambe. With this being home games for Port Vale, they should have the advantage, and I definitely like them attacking-wise, just maybe not 100% defensively. Players-wise, I like all 3 of Tolage, Chisler and Stockley, in that order, as they seem to be Vale's top source of goal contributions. There isn't much between them, so take your pick that you like the most, and I hope it works out well for you. The last team I'll speak about in depth is Walsall. Another team with 2 home games, Colchester at home and Fleetwood at home. Walsall have had a great start to the season and are in 3rd just behind Barrow and Gillingham. Colchester I've just spoken about, but them and Fleetwood have been performing at similar levels so far this season, and are both around mid-table. I did try and watch a bit of the Fleetwood Monday night game, and they seemed to be outplaying Morecambe in the first half, and ended the half 2-0. But to let that 2-goal lead slide and draw 2-2 at home is a little bit embarrassing against a team bottom of the league. So I have high hopes for Walsall, and they're actually a team I really like defensively. Taylor Allen's a standout, if you would like to pick one, but I'm also looking at their keeper, Tommy Simkin. The only thing is that he hasn't made a lot of saves so far this season, but that could be because he hasn't conceded a lot of shots, meaning the defence in front of him seems very solid. Attacking-wise, my favourite would be Nathan Lowe, but then Connor Barrett's got 4 assists from, I think he plays left-back. The only thing to keep an eye on is that they do play at home to Leicester in the EFL Cup tonight, so we need to make sure there's no injuries or anything like that first. Again, you'll know the result of that before the video is released, so make sure you go and take a look before you pick any Walsall players. Okay, so now I'll just put the rest of the teams and players I like on screen. So from League 1, I like Barnsley, with Stockport and Wickham both at home, and Adam Phillips the player to target. I also don't mind Rotherham, because they've got Shrewsbury away and Cambridge away. I know it's 2 away fixtures, but 2 of the worst teams in the league, and Clark Harris would probably be the player to target for me. And then in League 2, I like Bradford's fixtures. Again, it's a shame they're both away, but Harrogate and Morecambe, 2 of the worst sides in League 2, against a strong Bradford side. It could be risky, but Andy Cook just does score goals, and he would be my pick. Then there's Gillingham, who don't have the easiest double fixture, but you can't ignore a team second in the league with 2 home fixtures. The Barrow game will definitely be harder of the 2, and I could see goals in the Grimsby game. Romeo Hutton would probably be the player I'd go for. Then there's Doncaster, again having 2 home fixtures against Chesterfield and Barrow. Barrow again could be a difficult one, but I do expect the home team to come out on top, and Luke Molyneux is obviously the player to target. And finally, I like Tranmere with Salford at home and Swindon at home. Tranmere haven't been as good in the last 2 games, but I feel these games could be good to target, and Luke McGee is the player I like the most. The only player on the list here that I haven't added the team for is Pascal Strike. I'm just not 100% sure on the fixtures for Leeds, although I do quite like the Coventry at home one. But the reason for Strike is that Leeds' defence is fairly solid, and he's still on penalties. I know he missed one against Cardiff, but the fact he's still on them makes him a fantastic option. This week I do have a couple of clubs to mention to actually avoid their fixtures, and the first is Reading. Reading's performances have been, let's just say, inconsistent so far this season, but the reason I've got them in my avoid section is for a completely unrelated reason to their results. So yes, they have 2 home games coming up in Game Week 8, with the first against Huddersfield, not the easiest fixture anyway, and the second against Burton. You might not be thinking about their players anyway, but if you were, just bear in mind that there's a lot going on behind the scenes of the club. the fans are fuming, and rightly so, that the owner hasn't sold the club yet. If there are any Reading fans watching this, they might be able to explain it better in the comments, as I don't want to spread any false information. But from what I understand, they're very close to going bust, and I think they're surviving off the money they got from the Elise sell-on clause at the minute. They've had issue with ownership for a long time now, really. Last season there were quite a lot of games where the fans were throwing tennis balls on the pitch to delay it and try and bring attention to the situation. And with that continuing up until this point, and the club just putting out an announcement that the deal has fallen through and that they're not selling it, it's caused even more frustration. So basically, with the game against Huddersfield being a 12:30 kickoff and being on Sky, the fans are potentially taking it as an opportunity to bring more attention to the situation and protest. Now, I can't say 100% what's going to be the outcome of those protests, but I've been at a game before, which was Huddersfield away at Blackpool. I can't remember what season it was, but the Blackpool fans actually ran on the pitch and sat down in the centre circle, and the match eventually just got abandoned. If that was to happen, I don't really know what Fantasy EFL would do. And so from the game's point of view, I think that makes all those players an avoid. It also makes the Huddersfield players an avoid too, as they then also play Birmingham as part of their double game week. I would just like to say though, ignoring the Fantasy EFL aspect, that whatever happens on Saturday, and I will be going to the game in the Huddersfield End, that we all stand with the Reading fans. No club should ever have to go through this. Huddersfield weren't far off going into administration before Kevin Nagle came in, so we know the feeling and the anger that it brings. We've already seen it happen to Bury, I think it happened to Macclesfield if I'm correct there, and it nearly happened to Bolton too. Some things are just bigger than the football, and these clubs are about like community, and people devote their lives to supporting these clubs, so these owners shouldn't really be allowed to own a football club in the first place, and I really feel sorry for the Reading fans. We really hope it all gets sorted and we can watch a good game of football on Saturday. The second team I've got to avoid is actually Wimbledon. Unfortunately, even though Wimbledon arguably have one of the best sets of double fixtures, for me they're actually an avoid. If you haven't seen it, and I'm prepping this video before the game was even meant to be played, but their cup game at home to Newcastle on Tuesday night has been postponed. That's due to overnight flooding, and their pitch is ruined. If you haven't seen the video of their pitch, then I urge you to go and find the clip, because you'll then understand why I'm about to say that I can't see any of their games being played there for quite a long time, unless they have the best groundsman ever. I'm unsure right now as to what's going to happen, but that is already enough to put me off. But they could end up playing their games away from home, the games just might get cancelled and rearranged for later in the season, and that could potentially make Wimbledon a great pick later on, maybe even for a triple game week. But either way, it's going to cause some stability problems for the club, and just for me that makes them an avoid with the unknown around the situation. Okay, so finally, just before I end the video, I'll just talk about my team selection for Game Week 8. In goal, and this was a difficult decision actually, and still could change, but at the minute I'm on Tranmere's Luke McGee. With 2 home fixtures against 2 sides with not good starts to the season, Salford have only scored 4 goals and sit in 15th, and Swindon have scored 7 but are 21st. Tranmere do concede a fair bit of XG, which means quite a lot of shots faced, but McGee saved 14 shots so far this season, at a save percentage of 66.7, which isn't bad. I think there's a decent shout at least 1, maybe even 2 clean sheets, and if not, then we just have to hope for a few save points instead. Into defence, I've gone for Pascal Struijk of Leeds. I think he's an obvious choice with being on penalties in a strong Leeds defence. Playing Coventry at home and Norwich away, neither team have had the start they wanted, with Norwich slightly better than Coventry, but I do think Leeds could be too good for both of them. If Coventry or Norwich were to start performing at a higher level, and actually it turns out there isn't much chance of a clean sheet potential, then at least Struijk will have the opportunity for more clearances and bonus points. Next to him, I've got Connor Barrett of Walsall for their home games against Colchester and Fleetwood. With 4 assists so far this season, he's not just got the clean sheet potential, he's clearly got attacking threat too. In midfield, I've gone for the triple up at the minute of Josh Brownhill, Gustavo Hamer and Luke Molyneux. Fairly obvious for all 3 of them. I've already spoken about Brownhill and Hamer in this video, and I've been talking about Molyneux all season. I feel like this is one of the strongest midfields on the game, but the question is if it's the week to have all 3, and could anyone else potentially outscore them? But for me, this is actually the safe option. I've probably taken a few too many risks so far this season, so for now this is my midfield. And then finally up top, the lone attacker I've gone for is Jay Stansfield. Yes, I know he plays against my team Huddersfield, but at least if he does score, like I said earlier, and I actually hope he doesn't score, by the way, but at least it won't ruin both parts of my weekend. It's just crazy that he's playing in League One. He could definitely be playing in the starting 11 for a lower league Prem side like Southampton or maybe Ipswich, but he's down in League One playing for Birmingham. We obviously only have 7 players to pick, and I really would have liked to get in one of Andy Cook or Clark Harris. I also would have liked either a Port Vale midfielder or another Birmingham player in midfield, but we literally can't fit them all in, so I'm hoping that I've picked the best players. Please let me know if you agree with me or not, but I do believe I've picked the best ones, and I do have the right to change my mind on that too. And then for my fixture selections, I've gone for Burnley and Sheffield United, just for the simple reason that I think they're the 2 strongest teams this week. Oxford and Plymouth for Burnley, and Portsmouth and Swansea for Sheffield United. Hopefully it goes well for me and we can start to look at that top 1k by the end of this week. Obviously I don't know what my final rank for Game Week 7 is at the time of recording this video, but I'd be surprised if it's higher than 1k after how badly it's gone so far. Let me know how your team's looking for Game Week 8. Are you finding these double game weeks as hard as I am to pick the players that you prefer? In my opinion, there's too many to pick from. If you are enjoying the content though, please make sure to like and subscribe. We are getting close to 100 subs already, even though we've only been going a couple of months. So please do subscribe, it really helps me out. Good luck for Game Week 8 and I'll see you in the next one.